Okay, so we have talked about how there is a great diversity of life on this planet and what the characteristics of living organisms are. So we're going to talk about how scientists go about grouping organisms based upon their shared characteristics. And you probably have heard of taxonomy before, and Carolus or Carl Linnaeus, which was a botanist back in the 1700s who is thought to be the father of taxonomy. And you have to realize when we're talking about taxonomy that this was before Darwin, and it was before our understanding of how organisms are related. So oftentimes the taxonomic way of classification might be a little bit different than how we would classify organisms based upon their evolutionary relationships. So we're just going to talk about the levels of classification. It's a hierarchy. We're going to go from big to small, and you need to know these different levels and be able to give examples of them. And we are going to be going through a lot of different organisms and describing them and talking about them from a taxonomic basis when we talk about animal diversity. So we are talking about animal taxonomy this quarter. Okay. So the biggest group in animal taxonomy is the kingdom. And I think that's kind of a cool word, cool grouping. So we're going to talk about humans, and we're going to compare them to the domestic cow. Okay. So kingdom Animalia. So all animals are in the kingdom Animalia. And so that would include jellyfish and earthworms and vertebrates like humans and cows, okay? So we have the kingdom. The next group is the phylum. So this is a smaller classification. So wherein the kingdom contains all of the animals, our phylum is going to be Chordata for humans. This is the primitive notochord, which makes up our vertebral column, and it also is related to our spinal cord. So we are both chordates, chordata. And I wanted to point out that there's little designations above phylum. So we could talk about the superphylum, or there's a designation below called a subphylum. So we're just talking about the major groups, even though there's little groups in between these. Okay, so kingdom, phylum, class. Even smaller, okay? So what chordates produce milk? This would be the mammalia. Mammalia. They're both in the class Mammalia. Instead of reptilia, or instead of being bony fish or cartilaginous fish, we are in the phylum Mammalia, humans and cows. Okay, kingdom, phylum, class, order. We are primates. Cows are hooved organisms, and they are in the order Artiodactyla. Artio, that's a T-I-O, Artiodactyla. Okay, so that is the first designation where we have now narrowed it down to a point where humans and cows are in different groups. So kingdom, phylum, class, order. What is next? Family. That's an L. Family. So we are hominids. So we are in the Hominidae family. You might have heard that word if you take anthropology, where you study humans, the evolution of humans. Okay, cows are bovidae. Okay, hoofed animals, bovids. And then we have the genus. We are Homo, and the cows are Bos, B-O-S. And then we have the species name. And we are, with a lowercase, Sapiens, and they are lowercase Taurus. Okay, so one useful thing about this taxonomic classification are these two words right here. So the genus and the species can be combined to form the binomial nomenclature. So this is my two names, binomial nomenclature. That's C-L-A-T-U-R, clature. And so, for example, we have the genus Homo, and then we have Sapiens. And that is generally underlined or italicized in the scientific literature. So this is a way that we're able to communicate, even if we're not using the same language, we could communicate what species it is that we are studying. So this might be different than Homo neanderthalensis, which is the Neanderthals, right? They are extinct, but we did interbreed with them, and we have, most humans today have some Neanderthal genes in their genome, okay? And then we have Bos Taurus. Two words, binomial nomenclature. I'll write that word again. This is my binomial nomenclature. Okay. And so this is interesting because, and important, because you can look for this binomial nomenclature in any scientific paper that they're like maybe talking about a species of native bee in the United States. So if I use the name of that native bee species in my paper, everybody will know exactly what species I am talking about. And so there is a system upon which we have classified organisms so we can better able to study the diversity of species. Now, species is really the only level of this taxonomic hierarchy that is like, it has a biological basis, a biological basis. So when we talk about species, these are individuals, by definition, that can potentially reproduce and produce viable, fertile offspring. Okay, so this is important because if I'm trying to determine if these two different populations of organisms are different species, like if I'm looking at a species of bird, I'm saying, are these two populations, are they different enough to be considered different species? I would ask this question: if we brought them together and they interbred, would they be able to produce viable, fertile offspring? And so sometimes we have what is called a subspecies. And so sometimes if we look at a name of something, it might have three names, and that third name is what is called the subspecies. And so subspecies are generally able, maybe if you put them together, to reproduce. But they might be isolated because they might be far enough away in their populations that they don't typically come together to reproduce. And so that is important. If we looked at all of the other ones, like the family and the order and the class, those really don't have any basis in the biology. We're just putting them together based upon their shared characteristics. And we're actually re-examining how we put those organisms together based upon molecular data. So one really interesting thing that has happened recently is that within the chordates, they've eliminated the birds as a separate class, and they've actually regrouped them with the reptiles. And so birds are actually in the class Reptilia instead of being in their own separate class, which they were when I was studying zoology at the university. And so we can reorder these things based upon all kinds of new information that we're getting based upon new technology of understanding how organisms are interrelated.